Hi friends, how are you? And welcome to my channel. I'm Nicole and this is Crimes with Cole. So hello, how are you guys doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you have had an amazing week, an amazing weekend, and are doing well and are ready for another crazy crime story. In today's case, we will be talking about Craig Rideout. And I don't know if you've ever heard about him in this case, but it shows you just how far some people will go to get what they want while they're going through a divorce. Craig had graduated in 1988 and he started working for a financial services firm as a computer programmer. A few years later at a bar, he had met Laura and the two became enamored with each other. They got married in January of 1993. 9 months later, they had their first son, Colin, and bought a 4-bedroom house on a 6-acre lot in Pittsford. Now, Craig started volunteering at this time for a Catholic ministry and youth group. And life was it was great for the newlyweds and the new little family. They ended up with 7 kids over the years, 3 girls and 4 boys. Their house was filled with chaos, but, the couple learned to embrace this, as you would have to in that situation. All the kids were smart and hardworking, and while they made the best of life, over the years of having those 7 kids, it had applied more of a strain and stress to the relationship between Laura and Craig than they had anticipated. 7 kids cost a lot of money nowadays, and it also cost a lot of money back then too. So the family was experiencing financial stress, and Laura just never noticed it. She just thought to herself that Craig was hiding money from her. Now, when in reality, they had a family of 9 people living off of one income, because at this time, Laura is a stay-at-home mom with all these kids, and Craig is a computer programmer. They had to end up downsizing their house and cutting back on some expenses, which is understandable. Many of us know problems like this. Problems in your marriage, problems in your finances, problems in parenthood, in life. They don't go away on their own. We all experience it. We've all been there. We all are there. We all may be there at some point. And they don't just go away. They take months, sometimes years, to really get a grasp on things, to really learn how to manage your life problems. Problem after problem pops up. You guys know it's nothing new. It's just how life goes. And this is exactly what the Rideout family was going through as well. Craig's way of de-stressing would be to lock himself in a room and play video games. Just, shut the world out and focus on his video game, and that's what he did. Laura's way of dealing with this stress was to isolate herself from Craig's family. You can only imagine the distance that is coming in between the two because of how they're dealing with this stress separate, and there is no communication between the two about it. In November 2014, after 21 years of marriage, Laura had filed for divorce. And while no one was really shocked that the two were getting a divorce, they were all shocked at the fact that Laura had moved out of the family home and moved into PJ's house and became romantically involved with PJ. Now, PJ was Craig's best friend, and PJ's wife had just died 3 months prior to Laura moving in. She was dealing with a long battle of liver disease and had finally lost that battle. And then that's when Laura had moved in 3 months later. And while this would bother most of us because of just how quick everything happened, it didn't really seem to bother Craig. And if it did, he did a very, very good job at hiding it. Now, the oldest son of Laura and Craig, Colin, he was away and in the process of becoming a Navy SEAL when he had caught wind of his parents' divorce. And he felt that it was more important to be at home, dealing with his siblings, helping his mom, you know, just kind of dealing with this divorce that is going to affect all of them, than to be at school and becoming a Navy SEAL. So he left to come home. With most divorces that have children in custody involved, it gets messy. It can certainly cause some tension on this already tension-filled moment in your life. So the 3 oldest of the 7 children were already, you know, graduated from high school, so the custody battle didn't really pertain to them because they were just doing what, you know, 18, 19, 20-year-olds do at that time. You know, they're just off trying to become their own person anyways. The next 2 oldest were old enough to pick between their mom and dad and who they wanted to live with full time, and they both chose their mother. So that leaves the 2 youngest. However, they did not get to pick because they were not old enough. So they had to go, you know, in between the 2. They were probably around like 10 and 4 years old, and they ended up getting shared custody of the 2 youngest. Now, Craig's sister Robin helped him out a lot because, I mean, he was a newly single dad. He had all these questions about, you know, probably parenting on his own. He needed help, you know, and his sister was there. She stepped up and she helped her brother anytime he needed it. The divorce ended up being drug out over 2 years and got so nasty. It got so nasty that they actually told Craig and Laura that when they exchanged the kids, that they could not interact with each other. So they would, you know, Laura would have the kids, she would pull up to Craig's driveway, the kids would get out of the car, they would walk to the front door, walk in the front door, and then Laura would leave. Craig was not allowed to come out of the house to speak with Laura. Laura was not allowed to get out of the car to speak with Craig, and then vice versa when Craig had to go drop off the kids. Or they would have their oldest son or one of the older children go get the kids from the other parent. That's how nasty this divorce got. Like, these 2 people, they couldn't. So in this divorce, Laura did not get any alimony or child support, even for the 2 like middle kids that chose to live with her full time. She did not get child support for them. She did not get alimony for the 21 years of marriage of being a stay-at-home mom. So Craig's attorney was working some sort of magic because, I mean, he got a pretty damn good deal in my opinion. Craig kept complaining to his attorney about how Laura wouldn't show up on time to pick up the kids or drop them off, or she would randomly show up. She had the oldest kids drive their siblings to like all their appointments or to school or something of that notion. And one time, Laura just dropped all 4, like the 4 youngest kids. So the 2 that had to go back and forth and the 2 that chose to live with their mother full time, she dropped all 4 of them off at Craig's doorstep. And the one daughter had just went in the house and she was just breaking stuff and throwing stuff everywhere and just like having a tantrum. I mean, she was having a full-fledged tantrum, acting out. Now, while all of this divorce mess was causing Craig to stress out, by the end of 2016, he was kind of starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But in the summer of 2016, after Craig had moved into this townhouse, an intruder dressed in all black broke into Craig's townhome, and he had plucked a single hair from his arm and then just left. That was it. It was very strange. It was very creepy. Very strange, very creepy. And Craig suspected it was probably Colin playing a prank, so he kind of like blew it off a little bit. But the next morning when he got up, he noticed that his keys were missing and his BlackBerry. He had found his keys, but reported the break-in, even though he kind of was hesitant about it. He didn't really want to, because he had thought it was a prank being played on him by one of his kids. But to be safe, he reported the break-in anyways. Now, 6 days after, his sister kept trying to call, and she couldn't get a hold of him, which was very out of character for him because, again, ever since this divorce, Robin and Craig became very close. You know, Robin was helping Craig out all the time. So for him not to respond to any of her texts or calls or anything was very odd. She decided that she was just going to stop by his townhouse and check in and see, you know, what was up. And when she pulled up, she discovered that Laura was there. Why would Laura be here? Why would you be at your ex-husband's house when you two clearly do not get along? She had walked into the townhouse and she saw Laura just standing in the kitchen, wiping down the countertops. And when Robin had asked her, you know, what are you doing here? Laura said that she got a text from one of the younger kids that when they woke up, their dad wasn't there, and so she sent Colin over to go get the kids. But she stayed behind because the kitchen smelled weird. So she was going to clean it up some. Robin pretended to buy Laura's very bizarre story and noticed that all 3 pairs of Craig's shoes were lined up neatly near the staircase. Now, these were like the 3 main pairs of shoes that he would wear. So he always kept them downstairs, you know, by the door, all lined up, you know, grab a pair and go. She had gone upstairs and she noticed that the master bedroom was locked. When she and Laura left, they both left together at the same time, but Laura was carrying out a bag of trash. And when Laura got into her car, she went over to the passenger side and then climbed in, like, over to the driver's side and then drove off. Robin ended up going back to work and she told her boss because that's very strange. And her boss told her, you need to call Craig's attorney just because of how nasty this divorce was. So Robin decided that she was going to call Craig's attorney, and when she did, the attorney advised her that she needed to call 911 and report Craig missing. The police arrived at the townhouse rather quickly, actually. They told Robin that they needed a warrant to get in, and while the police were still there, Laura arrived back with the 2 youngest kids to drop them off. The police asked Laura and the kids, and all 3 of them said that Craig was there last night, but when the kids had woke up, Craig wasn't there. Now, 50 miles across town on some old country road, I mean, there's like fields and woods for miles and miles and miles, okay? There was a farmer riding his bike down this 2-lane country road in the wee hours of the morning and noticed 2 cars at this intersection. But, you know, he didn't think anything of it because, you know, why would he? However, when he was coming back from wherever he had gone, he had noticed there was a shovel thrown on the side of the road right where those 2 cars were at. And near the shovel, like, the grass was all trampled down, which led back probably about 50 feet. So the grass was all trampled about 50 feet back to the woods. And by the road out here, there was a shovel. So the farmer got off of his bike and he followed the trail back to the woods, and he found a brown tarp. And hanging out of this tarp was a bare human foot. So he called the police. When the police had arrived, they went and they started looking, and they noticed that whoever had put this body there had put acid on this person's face to disform the face. And while the police were staring at the body, just kind of observing it, they heard a cell phone ring from inside the pocket of the pants that was on the body. It was Robin calling. She had bought her brother a prepaid phone when his BlackBerry had gotten stolen like a week prior, when that intruder had broken into the house and plucked the one hair off of his arm, and he couldn't find his BlackBerry. Well, his sister had bought him a prepaid phone so that they could get in contact with each other. Once they had discovered that the body in the brown tarp was Craig, the autopsy came back and showed that Craig had died of strangulation. He also had a fractured cheekbone along with cuts all over his body. However, the acid that was thrown on his face to disfigure it was put on after Craig had passed. So going back to the townhouse that night, the police got their warrant and searched Craig's townhome. They noticed that the house had everything in its normal place. And when they entered the basement, they noticed that the one half of the basement was very neat, organized, untouched. Everything was kind of put in its place. But on the other side, it was just very messy. But it didn't really concern the police too much, because it wasn't, maybe that was just his organized half of the basement and this was his work in progress. What did concern the police was that when they started looking closer, they noticed blood splatters all over the walls. And then they had sprayed the floor with aluminum and found even more blood that someone tried to clean up. They then found what appeared to be a garrote and a trash bag, which is, a weapon that would be used for strangulation. But it was a homemade one with a jump rope and some tape. At around 5 p.m., after the police had searched Craig's townhome, they had brought over the violent victims advocate to meet Robin, because they believed that Craig was the victim of a violent crime. At this point, Robin is just telling everything to the detectives that she thinks will help solve what had happened to her brother and who did this to him. Now, down ways a little bit at a local park back by the lake in this park, okay, there were 2 guys throwing garbage bags into the lake. A local neighbor had called the police to report this, because some people really take pride in the parks that they go to, and they don't want to see garbage. And why wouldn't you be throwing it in a garbage can? So they sent some police officers out there, and it turns out that those 2 guys were Colin and his brother Alex, the 2 oldest sons. Now, the police were talking to them and, just kind of asking what they were doing and whatnot. And it kind of dawned on the police that the boys were not aware that their father's body had been found. So the police were just kind of talking, making small talk with the boys, well, what do you think had happened to him? What was he into? You think he would have just left out of the blue like that? And Colin said that he had saw him when he dropped off his younger siblings the other day. And Alex said that his dad was all the time saying how, he just wanted to disappear. So maybe he just happened to make it happen this time and just left. But Colin was telling the police how he felt his dad was, kind of ready to have a mental breakdown. But then the police asked them what was in the trash bags that they were throwing in the lake. And they came out and said that they were at their dad's a few days ago. And when they went into the basement, they noticed that there was a bunch of blood down there. So they took it upon themselves to clean up the blood, and all of the stuff that they used to clean up the blood in the basement were in the trash bags. You know, like their shoes, their gloves, clothes, you know, whatever. Now, when they were retrieving these bags, they discovered a pair of Laura's jeans alongside Craig's jeans and Alex's sweatpants. Colin and Alex said that their mom had given them the trash bags and told them to throw it away after they went over there and helped their mom and sister clean up this mess. I mean, almost the entire family at this point is partaking in helping Laura clean up the mess of their dad. And like, none of them seem to be questioning, where is dad? Like, why are we cleaning up all this blood? Oh my God, they already know. Ugh, rascals. Now, as the investigators started digging into the details of Craig's life, they discovered just how nasty like this divorce had gotten between Craig and Laura. They also discovered that Laura wanted to move out of state with the two youngest kids with her lover PJ, but Craig forbid it. For weeks leading up to Craig's death, Laura and Craig had been fighting over her taking the kids and moving them from New York to North Carolina. Because, I mean, at that point, I mean, he wouldn't see any of his kids. And she had planned to move a few days after Craig had been killed. The original plan was that Colin wasn't going to convince the two middle sisters that lived with their mother full time to get Craig to like flip out, and then they would video record it on their phones, and then they would, you know, obviously take it to courts claiming that Craig was this secret, violent, and abusive dad, and, you know, he should not have shared custody with the two younger ones. That was the original plan. And all of this was planned out between text. Like, there are text messages confirming that this was the plan between all of them. Between all of the kids and the mom, they all text each other. This plan. Like it wasn't going to haunt them. Now, Colin is coaching like his middle sisters on how to get their dad all worked up. But when it didn't work, Colin decided that he was going to take it upon himself to email his dad and accuse him of abusing him, like when he was younger and they were all together, and how he is the reason that the family had fallen apart, and all the kids hate him, but they love their mom because she's always been there and she's this amazing person, and his dad is this awful person. And, you know, this is why all of the kids except for two chose their mom over their dad, and just really trying to get under Craig's skin. He's just trying to get any sort of violent reaction out of his dad at this point to use it against him so that his mom can take these, you know, the two youngest girls and move to North Carolina. Now, everyone who knew Craig said that this had to have been made up because he was just never abusive to his kids. He just wasn't that type of guy. He wasn't hot-headed. He wasn't quick to lose his temper. He wasn't the type to have like anger outburst or react instead of respond. He just wasn't that type of guy. He never raised a hand to any of them, nor physically or emotionally abused any of his children or his ex-wife. He was, I mean, slightly cruel to Laura during the divorce, but, you know, I mean, she gave it right back to him, but that was, you know, like the only time he was ever mean or nasty to anybody. And it's probably because Laura kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Not saying that she's a horrible person, but just saying that sometimes divorce brings out the worst in people. So when the police had arrived at Laura's house, they arrested Laura. And PJ was just shocked by all of this and very confused. Like, why is my girlfriend being arrested? The police had to explain to both of them, because Laura herself was confused as well, why Laura was being arrested. And PJ's response was that Laura didn't have any animosity towards Craig, and he didn't know why they thought she would be the one to kill him. When the police searched Laura and PJ's house, they found a key fob to Craig's car in the master bedroom. They also found blue tape that matched the tape used on the handles of that grot used to kill Craig. And PJ said that, they were at home together when Craig was killed, and this alibi just didn't work too well for PJ. So PJ was arrested too. Colin, Alex, Laura, and PJ were all let out on bail, and they were all only charged with evidence tampering, because they haven't found out all of the details that they needed to charge anyone with murder, but they knew one of them had to have done it. So investigators found video from Walmart 2 days before the murder, and there Colin and Laura and, one of the teenage daughters buying drain cleaner, which, and they may have used that to throw on Craig's face to disfigure it. The next day, at a different Walmart, Laura and PJ are on video buying like a large tarp and bungee cords and even more drain cleaner, which matched the ones found with Craig's body. And on the day of the murder, Colin was caught on camera buying a shovel, which matched the shovel that was found on the side of the road. The one that the farmer had found. They matched. The police came up with this theory that when the two girls were dropped off at Craig's house, that PJ and Laura were going to try to talk to him. Reason with him about the move to North Carolina that they had planned to happen in a few days. And during all of this, somehow Craig was lured to the basement, in which his own family, his own children, were waiting for him down there to kill him. And the plan was to strangle him with the grot. But then Craig fought back, and so someone had to hit him on the head, and that's when he started bleeding, and that's what caused blood to get everywhere. When the trial began, they were all charged with second-degree murder, and they were all tried at the same time in the same trial. That never happens. It never happens, but it did this time, which was very weird. It's very rare that that even happens, just because of all the evidence that can be, stronger against certain people in the case, and then you become fixated that they are guilty, and you lose focus on the ones who don't have as much evidence, and it's chaos. That's why it's not done that way. Now they each had their own attorney, and basically what each attorney was doing was saying that the prosecution doesn't even know what truly happened, and my defendant had minimal to do with this, and it was everybody else, right? It wasn't my client, it was everybody else. My client had minimal to do with it. That's what every single one of their attorneys was doing. But the prosecution was coming back and saying, yeah, we don't know exactly what happened. We don't know which one of the four gave Craig his final blow that took his life, but we do know that all four of them had something to do with it. So after 4 weeks, the prosecution presented over 700 pieces of evidence. But the email evidence between Colin and Craig was never presented, because they couldn't really prove that it was truly Colin writing those emails. And the conversation the police officers and Alex and Colin had when they were at the park near that pond where they were throwing those trash bags in, that wasn't presented either because they weren't read their Miranda rights. So it was just police making small talk with two guys throwing bloody clothes in a trash bag in a lake. When the defense came up to present, they said that the purchases at Walmart was for the move, that they were getting ready to move, and the drain cleaner was because they had clogged drains and they wanted to make sure they were all clear for when the new people moved into their house. PJ kept saying how he had Laura and the two teen girls living with them, that, you know, they were all the time clogging up the drains with their hair and just, you know. One bottle of drain cleaner should get the job done, maybe two, but anything past 2 bottles, I would recommend probably calling a plumber. And they had 6 bottles of drain cleaner in those trash bags. After all the attorneys had started blaming the other person, the jury deliberated for 5 days. Alex was acquitted on second-degree murder charges, but found guilty for tampering with evidence. Colin was found guilty of second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Laura was found guilty of second-degree murder, and PJ was acquitted of all charges. Laura and Colin were both sentenced to 25 years to life. Alex was sentenced to a maximum of 8 years. And they are all appealing their convictions. Go figure. But in an article, Colin had said that he feels so betrayed by his mom and feels like she framed him, and that she had him by, you know, the shovel and then just deliberately left it on the side of the road for the police to find because she knew that it would be traced back to him. I mean, I don't know. He probably should have just not went along with the plan. Probably should have told his mom, you know, you should not do that. Just wait until the kids turn 18. And then he probably should have just also gone back and finished becoming a Navy SEAL and just worrying about Colin and not so much about his mom and this divorce. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? Like, all the kids pretty much were somewhat involved. Like, they all were. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know what you guys think, because I just, my goodness. And until next time, please remember to be safe, and I will see you then. Bye.